Hello and welcome everybody to today's Sunday with the Norway team. Today's show is also a guest session, and we are joined today by Barrister Ali Tahir Sahab. Barrister Ali Tahir is a well-known lawyer who practices at the Sindh High Court under his own name. He is dealing in constitutional, administrative services, and property matters with a translational practice. He graduated in law from the University of London and was called to the bar of England and Wales by Lincoln's Inn and completed his LLM in accountability laws from the University of West of England. He has previously served as the director of the Center of Law and Access to Justice at the Ziauddin University. So, welcome aboard, Barrister Sahab, and we're very honored to have you here today with us.
Thank you very much. So kind of you for such a kind introduction. I'm very grateful, Hafsa.
Thank you very much. Ajay Barrister Sahab, in your practice of law, today's theme is surrounding gender equality. So, in your practice of law, what would you like to comment on gender equality and your practice of law around it?
Bismillah Rahman Rahim. First of all, kudos to you as well as the Norway team for really talking about these topics which need to be discussed in public. And I think the Norway team is doing a very good job. I'm a great fan of the show. I try to tune in every week and watch it. So well done to the entire team as well, to all of you working very hard. Now, when you talk about gender equality, it's a very theoretical concept. There's a wide array of differences on what gender equality really means. But of course, when you talk about constitutional law or law in general, then it has to stop somewhere. There has to be some understanding of it because law has to be applied to society. So when you talk about gender equality, it has to be understood in terms of equality in general. Gender equality is the same thing as treating people with disabilities equally, treating people from different races and ethnicities and different religions equally, and so on, treating both genders equally, which only means that anybody must not be stripped of an opportunity. They must not be stripped of a benefit. They must not be stripped of an advantage just because they belong to a particular gender, race, class, or case. That's the smallest definition that one can gather. But of course, I work in the law, and I'm telling you that even though we have formulated such beautiful, magnificent definitions, as far as gender equality is concerned, the legal profession itself is not an epitome. Much rather, it is something where gender equality is still left to be desired. We do not have any woman judge in the Supreme Court, and that's a historical fact. From 1947 up until 2021, we've had a pandemic which nobody really thought would come in, but we've never had a woman judge of the Supreme Court, which everybody thought would happen, but it did not. At the high courts, there are only 2 or 3 women judges in every high court. There are no women in the Pakistan Bar Council. And you see, the legal profession itself has so much gender inequality that there is too much to be desired, really, too much to be desired. Women who are coming in as litigators do not have the same opportunities that men have. Men can barge into a courtroom, they can barge into police stations, they can barge into jails. Of course, all of that is difficult for women to do. Now, there are women who are doing that. But and I really appreciate them. We must salute them because the job they are doing, they're really beating all the odds. They're beating misogynistic mindsets. They're really, pushing patriarchy backwards. But there's so much more that we have to do. Now, other than the legal profession, when you talk about the law itself, as I've said before, at the expense of repeating myself, gender equality in the law is nothing more or nothing less than the fact that if there is a benefit or an advantage that is due to you, it cannot be withheld only on the basis of gender. So, for example, if I have the right practice in the High Court, a woman with the same qualifications cannot be stripped of that right just because of her gender. Although the law does contain that equality, practically speaking, that equality does not exist in society because of the social mindset. And I think if you really want to cover gender equality from the lens of the law, I think that is how we can just in a very brief manner sum it up, that yes, laws do exist. Article 25 of our great constitution talks about equality in all its form. It talks about majestic equality, but that is not what is actually happening in society. It might be a norm, but it's not a fact.
Okay. Thank you for briefing this point, because we've been planning to ask you on this, because our conversation on gender equality has, like, you already curated the summary of the entire session. So let's just coming back to the point that what should women do? Like, what are the laws by Pakistani? What is Pakistani policy for women at work? Like, what can you elaborate on, like, since it's a bit of a sensitive topic, so can you elaborate what are the harassment policies, like which things that you can count under harassment, so that women in our community, in our country, in our city knows that these are their rights. Sadly women don't know what are their rights. That's why they're not voicing up. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. I understand it is a sensitive topic, but with our generation coming up, I think this topic has been in the centerfold now for the last very many years, and people are speaking up on these things, which of course is a very good omen for our civilization. Uh, Now, when you were talking about harassment, let's first of all cover the fact that whether people do know about their rights or not, I would respectfully disagree with you. People do understand, at least on the very basic level, that harassment is wrong. And people understand this as well, that they can take legal action, just like they understand that rape is wrong and they can take legal action when somebody sexually assaults them or rapes them. But the problem is less with the understanding of the law or awareness and more with how people think about it. There have been so many cases personally where I've seen where if a woman has been the victim of a sexual assault, her family tries to talk her out of taking legal action. And that is for, of course, for a couple of reasons. The first one is that what will the society think? What will the extended family think? What will your friends think? What will my friends think? If I'm your father, what will my friends think? That my daughter was sexually assaulted and now there's a case going on which is in the public eye. There's a people will go in, and the sort of society that we have, just to use an Urdu word because it's the most appropriate word here, वो चस्का लेने फौरन पहुंच जाते हैं. So that is why there's a social attitude to taking legal action, and which restricts you. Just until a few months ago, the Supreme Court has recently banned the two-finger test to check the character of a woman who has been raped. Just a few months before this, it was entirely legal and I'm sorry to speak in such a manner, but it was completely legal to just penetrate a woman to check her whether she's a woman of virtue or whether she has a loose moral character. What else do you want to, what else can be said of this legal system? There are real issues. The police is unprofessional. When you go to get your medical done, it's a lot of hassle. The prosecutors are unprofessional. However, there are some very good organizations which are actually trying to, just trying to help these rape and sexual assault victims, and they're doing a great job. If I could name a few, there's the Legal Aid Society that is doing a great job in support of rape victims. And I think if we really change the attitude of the society, there will be some sort of improvement. The laws already exist. And it's not about the laws. People do understand that harassment is wrong. but they do not want to take legal action. Rather, if a woman comes in and tells somebody she's close to that I was harassed at work, there are two things that there will be two reactions. One would be, "Chal, let's go, I'll beat him up," number one. And number two will be, "Why don't you just, just quit, move somewhere else, or just stay quiet? There's a good salary. Tell him you don't like it, but just work. Try to, be diplomatic, try to figure it out." And I think that is not a problem with the law. That is a problem with the way we think. And that is the real issue, the way this society thinks.
Very well elaborated, Barrister Ali. You mentioned the state of the law and how much participation women hold there, and then how very much women choose to access or not access justice and what reasons revolve around it. One fundamental question I have regarding this is, you mentioned patriarchy in your first explanation as to what is creating the inequality in the participation of women being lawyers on higher positions. Given we have all kinds of audiences, can you define for our society here what patriarchy is and how you feel as a man? Yes.
Very interesting topic. You see, patriarchy is not something that we control genuinely. When you talk about patriarchy, the basic ideas. Now, I won't go into a lot of academics because that might just bore people out as well. Just stick to the major talking points. When you talk about patriarchy, the idea is not that the father says, "Son, I like you," and then he turns to the daughter and he says, "I don't like you." That's not how patriarchy works. That's not patriarchy. Patriarchy is something much more subtle. Patriarchy works in a way where one gender automatically takes advantage over the other gender, even though it looks equal. You see, if you judge an elephant and a monkey by its ability to climb a tree, it might seem equal on the surface. It might look it's equal, but definitely, it's anybody with a reasonable mind would conclude that it is the barest form of inequality that we can call out. And the same with patriarchy. Patriarchy works in such a subtle way that you don't really realize that it has surrounded all of us. So, for example, just to give you a few examples, if I learn, I work at my own law firm. I run a law firm, and obviously, to do that, I have to keep my staff disciplined. Now, at times, that means being a little frank with them on how they're proceeding with things. Okay, and this might mean criticism. "You've not done this right. Why haven't you? You're not on time. Why haven't you come on time?" So on and so forth. I do really realize, however, that if I was a woman, I would have been easily labeled a bitch by now, because they would have said, "ये किस किस्म की खातून है, ये किस तरह बात करती है, इसको बात करने की तमीज नहीं है. What is she doing?" So you see, there's a difference. Now that's where patriarchy is kicking in, and that is why one gender is at a disadvantage with comparatively to the other gender. The same way is, because I'm a lawyer, let's take a law example once again. It is much easier for a man to make his way through public transportation to reach the court on time. It is much harder for a woman to do so. She has to be very careful on how she has to dress in public transport, where she is sitting, whether somebody is lurking behind her, whether somebody is, just generally looking at her. So that is how patriarchy works. When it does look equal,
sorry
it
to
might.
sorry
Sure.
sorry to cut you over here. I had a very good. I wanted to ask your input on it, since you have said that women had to dress in a specific kind of a way. So can you just, if you were a woman and you have been given a chance to live a life of a woman, from an alpha male to a woman, and with your experience, like act like a lady, think like a man, what would be your upright plan of action on it? Like, how would you have handled this?
I think that's a difficult question because I've never really imagined being a woman. That's not something that I've imagined really. But
Try for a while, and just give us girls like us the confidence that how to handle this kind of thing, because
but
that's
off the
why.
cuff, you see, maybe I can just turn the example around a little bit. Uh,
Okay.
Off the cuff, I think I've seen women who do a great job in trying to shut up the patriarchs. An example would be Asma Jahangir. She would
Wow.
barge into a bar room, and there would be men all around. They would be
Hmm.
cursing and everything, but once they saw Asma Jahangir, they would shut the hell up because they would see that this is a woman, we can't mess with her. She would go to the
Hmm.
podium and she would argue her case, and she would not take, even if somebody would say you're not ladylike, she'd say I'm not here to please you, and she would just continue with her case. So we do
Yeah,
have
that's what I wanted to listen. That's what I wanted to listen. That you just give us some strategies. So that's how we go make our way into the world of man.
but in fact, my sister was telling me, I think this was 2 weeks ago. She was telling me that as she entered the court, she's a barrister as well, and she does a lot of sexual assault cases. She's supporting uh, those victims who've gone through sexual assault. And she was telling me that as she entered the courtroom, there was old lawyer, and he came over to her and said, beta, take your dupatta properly. And she said, even though I had taken my dupatta, I was wearing a black coat, I was wearing shalwar kameez, I was very appropriately dressed, but he just came in and he said, wear a dupatta. And she said, what should my reaction be? Because I ignored her and I went ahead and I saw, I just went ahead and sat on the front bench. And I told her, the next time somebody does that, give it to him. Tell him to shut up. Tell him, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? This is my courtroom. I'm an advocate of the High Court, and I'm much more competent than you are. So you go and cover your head and go and sit there and let me argue my case. Please do not ever do this to me again. So maybe women have to speak up more, even though I understand that in this society, there would obviously just because they speak up, it would be like, बदतमीज औरत है. I understand that. But
Sorry to.
nevertheless, nevertheless, something
No.
has something has to be done.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you for your input on it, because that's what I've seen that women are doing over here, and you have actually answered it really accurately. So thank you for that. I think Dr. Hafsa has a question for you. Over to
Yes,
you,
I
Doctor.
I heard your question, Misha, and I heard Barrister's explanation on it, and he quoted some amazing examples of amazing women, Asma Jahangir, his own sister, and their experiences. Here is my concern. Misha, you mentioned the fact that there is this mindset you have to act like a lady, think like a man. Here is the thing: why are we concerned about the idea of women having to think like a man, as that being a moral standard that women have to comply to? And then you mentioned Asma Jahangir being a woman of force, and making sure that nobody dares says anything against her. She doesn't act ladylike. Do you think it is a big problem for us in the society? That being ladylike is something that seems condescending to the norm in terms of professional ethics.
I mean, you are absolutely right. When I said that she did not act ladylike, I did not mean that she did not act ladylike. I said this is what the people that were against her used to say. You're not behaving like a woman. Come on, where are your manners? That's a particular attitude in this society. And the argument that you've picked up, when you look at feminist jurisprudence and you look at some of the top writers on feminist jurisprudence, you realize that even they have not come down to a definition of what feminism is. One would say that we have to really, think like men. And there's another one, there's Catherine McKinnon, who says that no, the ethic of care is much better than the ethic of profession that men have. The ethic of care is actually much better on. And she says that women have to think like women. But you see, even when we talk about men or women, it's not like all of them think alike. There are women who think completely opposite in terms of each other. Somebody would like to be married, have children, have a family, be a homemaker. The other one would like to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So you see, there's a great difference between how people think. And I think we cannot just generally put it down into boxes. What we can, however, put down into a box is that under the constitution and under the law and under the norms that should be pushed in this country, everybody should have the opportunity to do as they wish, so far as they're not breaking any laws. And this means that women should have the full right and the full privilege to really chase after their passion, enter whatever trade or profession they want to, and do so without discrimination. At least that is what we can put down into a box. The all of the other things are, I think, in terms of are important in terms of theory only. How women think or not is a question for psychology, which of course they must answer, and I appreciate them for answering that, for just experimenting and doing all of the research work. They do deserve a cheers for that. But however, in terms of practice, people think in a very arid manner. Okay, I know about lawyers who work day and night just because they want to expand their practice, and no, I know of lawyers who are very happy with where they are on a salaried position. They go in the morning, they do their work, they give their brief back, they're like, we are happy now, we are going to go for a run, spend some time with the family. We do not want to really climb this ladder. The hell with that, we don't care. So you see, there's so much, people think very, very, very differently. And I think at the end of the day, we have to really protect that individual freedom, the freedom of the individual to decide the life for themselves. And any sort of discrimination, whether it is against men, women, the disabled, the people of color, any religion, that shall not be allowed in this country, or if we are really being optimistic in this world.
Coming back to whatever you said, that leads me to this, because the other day, after having a small talk with you before the session that we have, I came to this thing, emotional intelligence. So you're talking exactly the way that women should have an emotional control in a subtle way, so that they can communicate what they are feeling in a such a way that it is understood by men in a respected way. Because I believe that once you learn to control your emotions, your thing is heard, your matter is heard, your conversation is heard. People not just take you for granted. They think like this person is talking with a sense of emotional well-being or something like that. So, what's your input on this? Like, what about like what is your say on emotional intelligence amongst women and male collaboratively working towards reaching a combined goal? Because in companies like GSK or something like that, there is a component of emotional intelligence training in organizations. Are you recommending that every organization's healthcare or any kind of a thing also have this emotional intelligence kind of a lecture, so they work collaboratively, not competitively? What's your input on this?
I completely agree with you, other than on the compulsory trainings. I think that if some organization wants to do a training, they can do it. But I don't find it to be necessary. However, I do understand that emotional intelligence and collaboration is very important. And of
Why
course,
do
it is.
you why do you don't find it necessary? My question is that why do you don't find it necessary?
Because you cannot force, number one, you cannot force people to do something that they do not want to do. So say for example, if I join a new company tomorrow and they want me to grow a mustache, I will tell them I don't want to do that. That is completely my freedom, that is up to me. I might think my emotional intelligence is way beyond what the company will lecture me on, and so I do not find it necessary, although it is up to company policy on how they enact it. So some companies might enact it, some companies might not enact it. That is completely their freedom, and that is something to do with the relationship between the company and its employees. I do, however, think that the component of emotional intelligence is very important, and I think that the way to inculcate that emotional intelligence cannot be through lectures or seminars. It is through building a society that is based on collaboration. And if you really look at our society, you can easily see that any family has a number of people working. It has a number of people doing things for each other. I do not remember the last time I paid the bill for the electricity of my house. It is something that is completely being managed by my father. So obviously, that sort of collaborate, we learn that sort of collaboration the day we are born until we step out into the real world. We're looking at it again and again and again. And I think maybe this is just a narrative that needs to be pushed. People need to understand what emotional intelligence is. Now, one thing that I would like to add here is that you see, emotional intelligence, when you talk about it, you also have to understand the ground realities of this country. When you talk about emotional intelligence, it cannot be inculcated through only the medium of a lecture. uh, Half of the population is living under the poverty line. They do not have clean water to drink. They have to skip on lunch and dinner, sometimes on both. And generally speaking, they do not have anywhere to play sports. There's 7 or 8 family members and they're stuck in one room. I do not think that in such circumstances a person can really develop emotional intelligence, because there has to be some circumstances for them to be able to do it. We, all of us on this webinar right now, we belong to a very privileged class. We can talk about these things. They have no idea what emotional intelligence is. All they know about is to, really just fight with the brother on the fact that he did not wash his feet and his feet are now on his face, because there's 8 people and there's living in a small room. And you see, in such circumstances, I do not think you can really inculcate emotional intelligence only through the medium of lectures or a one-day training.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
on a
yeah.
Friday training.
You are
It
talking on
is,
the basis of a grassroots level that we didn't keep a check on that. Thank you for addressing that. That we need. You were talking on a grassroots level. Yeah. Over to you,
And
Dr. Hussain.
quite rightly said. So, I mean, the fact that we're speaking about emotional intelligence is a thing of a luxury, perhaps, as you quite mentioned rightly. Given that, and building on what you and Misha spoke about right now, there has to be some ground on which this entire aggressive equality war that's constantly ongoing a bit. How can people work as, no, allies and not foes in this situation, being of the opposite genders, uh, in the existing inequalities that there are? And in the light of law, how would you like to advise us on this? I mean, what would you like to say to the masses out there? Can this be easier?
you see, Hafsa, to be honest, I do not believe in this narrative of there being men and women being allies or foes whatsoever. Because if you really think about it, we as human beings, we have individual relationships. I can't see Hafsa anymore. Should I continue with the
Yeah, yeah.
answer?
Continue.
We
Yeah,
as
she'll be back.
individual human beings, of course, have very complex relationships. There will be men that I like, and there will be men that I hate. And there will be women that I like, and there will be women that I hate. And all of us function in the same way. I do not think that there is a cross section in society that says men versus women or men with women, and all of us would, just uh, start from the next day, all men and women will be on good terms. I do not think that is how human beings really function. So I understand that, of course, this is a narrative, but this is a narrative, I think, which belongs only to a very minority section of the population. Where, say, for example, when you look at a post regarding the Aurat March on the internet, there are women who would come out and bash all men, and then there'll be men who will come out and they'll bash women. And but that's a very tiny minority. When we really talk about in terms of our perspective, I understand that I have a father, but I have a mother as well. I have a brother, but I have a sister as well. I have male friends, but I have female friends as well. I have male enemies, but I have female enemies as well. And I'm pretty sure the same would be true with you. There will be some people who are male you would like. There are some people who are male you do not really like. And the same is with females. This person I like, this person I do not like. So I think there's nothing to do with being allies or foes per se. However, I do believe that we have been stopping the way of women to really achieve uh, what they are capable of achieving. I can squarely say that I have two sisters. Both of them are 10 times more intelligent than me. 10 times more intelligent than me, at least. But ultimately, at the end of the month, when we look at the difference between the income, I surpass them by 10 times, and of course, they are 10 times more intelligent. I'm surpassing them by 10 times in income. Of course, it is happening because this society is giving a benefit or an advantage to the male gender over the female gender. They cannot really achieve the things as easily as men can. And I think that is what ultimately needs to be realized, and that is something that needs to be redressed.
Oh, okay. That is. You actually elaborated and touched upon the points that we were actually thought that were flowed in this live session, and you beautifully articulated, eloquently touched each and every point.
Very kind of
Um, just yeah. Just last question over here. That since we are talking by equality by law, what are your thoughts to general women in the public? Since I've asked, but I'm curating it in a more specific way, what is your advice to women who are watching you and watching us? Like,
it will be the same advice to people who are disabled in this society. It is the same advice to people who belong from the lowest of the classes in this country. And I think that is to never back down, never be bullied. If you look at, you see, when you look at it in terms of disabled people, they cannot even cross a road in Pakistan themselves.
so what do
They
you
can do.
suggest? Sorry to cut you. What do you suggest according to law? According to law, what are the rights of the women in Pakistan?
I think,
Can you touch a bit on that?
yes, I think that the law has to be used as a weapon when whatever specific circumstance you're talking about. Let's say if you're talking about harassment at the workplace, you have a very specific piece of act known as the Women Harassment at Workplace Act 2010. In the same way, if you're talking about sexual assault, you have the Pakistan Penal Code. In the same way, if you're generally talking about discrimination, then you have constitutional protections enumerated under Article 25 of the Pakistan Constitution. And in the same way, there are so many provisions of law which actually enforce positive discrimination. So, from our National Assembly up until educational institutes, we have a reserved number of seats for women, which is positive discrimination, and it is constitutional, of course. So, in terms of the law, I think it has to be used as a weapon against this fight in patriarchy. Pakistan has very good laws regarding women protection. There's a Child Marriage Restraint Act, and I understand that the Pakistan People's Party is generally criticized as being corrupt, but Sindh is right now the only province where the minimum age of marriage is 18 years. Otherwise, in the rest of the provinces, it's 16 years. And you see, women are being converted forcefully, or at times when they're not of age of majority. And I think in those lines, the law has to be used as a weapon against all of these atrocities that are being done against women. Women do need to exercise the options and the remedies available to them under the law. There are very specific legislation in Pakistan in whatsoever manner you think. And I think the problem is with implementation, as we were saying before as well, at the expense of repeating myself. I would say once again that maybe the problem is not with the law. The problem is how we as a society think of using the law. Because a woman in a courtroom as a petitioner or as a plaintiff, oh my God, ye to phadebaz khatun hai, that sort of thing. And I think the real problem is that, and not with the fact that there are no laws. The laws are there, they exist, and I think that they should be used even more vehemently in terms of the protection for women. An example I can give you is that some women went to the Lahore High Court against the two-finger virginity test, and subsequently the Supreme Court affirmed that decision. And of course, such draconian practice was stopped only because a few people approached the court. And I think that is something that needs to be done again and again and again.
Okay. So, like beautifully, that people needs to be communicated, advocated again and again. Thank you for answering it in a very professional way. Over to you, Dr. Hafsa.
Thank you very much, Barrister Saab, for summarizing literally an ocean in words. Last but not the least, I have a question in the light of everything that you've said, and it's been very educational, and I hope it has been for our audience too. Mishra, if there are any questions, please do note them. But I do have one particular question though.
Yeah.
In the light of your experience as the director of the Center of Law and Access to Justice at Ziauddin University, you've mentioned the grassroots problems. You've mentioned that what we're talking about is a matter of luxury, and that a lot of things are not possible for people not coming from privilege. Also, there is a general perception in the society that if we would go to a certain law endorsing authority, we'd be, rejected, and that thwarts them from accessing the law. For those women who, let's say, for example, are aware of the law, it's a different argument whether they're aware or not. That's for another day, perhaps. But let's assume a woman knows what her right is, and she wants to access the law, and she wants to go and file a complaint, let's say, for example, and she's afraid. And there are certain elements in our justice system that do prevent in a certain manner. What would you like to recommend those women that this is the particular step that they need to take in order to, make sure that they get what they deserve? How to make it access easier?
I think the first thing that they should do before approaching a legal forum is to take legal advice from a competent lawyer. And I think that there are so many organizations now who are doing this work. If you want, I can name a few at the top of the list.
Please do name so that our audience can reach it out.
I think at the top of the list would be the Legal Aid Society. They're doing a lot for women who are being harassed, women who are being subjected to sexual assault, or women who are being subjected to rape. And I think the Legal Aid Society is probably the best place for a woman to reach out. They do have a Google page as well. They have a phone number as well. There are many other organizations which work on the same line as well, and they are continuously doing it. I think that ultimately, before you go to a legal forum, competent legal advice is very necessary, because, of course, the legal profession is in terms technical, and it has to be technical because it is about the administration of justice. It cannot be based only on the basis of pro equito. It has to balance in technical terms the demands of justice. And before you actually go to a legal forum, I think that competent legal advice is very, very, very important. I would urge them to first take that legal advice and then go to any legal forum. As far as the complaint being rejected goes, you see, the legal system has a way of working. A right of hearing is guaranteed to both of the parties, and then the judge has to pass a reasoned order. It is not within the discretion of the judge कि भाई मेरा दिल कर रहा है मैं इसको रिजेक्ट कर रहा हूँ, या मेरा दिल कर रहा है मैं इसको डिसमिस कर रहा हूँ या इसको अलाउ कर रहा हूँ. He has to pass a reasoned order, and then that reasoned order is appealable as well. It can be taken to a higher forum and appealed against. So I think that once there is legal advice, I do not think that complaints of women can be arbitrarily dismissed. In fact, they would be taken proper cognizance of, and they will be decided on merits.
Can you repeat the name of the legal aid forum that provides legal advice?
The legal aid, Dr. Afsar, can you just write it in the comment section so that our audience can just...
That's the name, legal aid? All right.
Legal Aid Society, yes.
Legal Aid Society. Okay.
Okay. So with that,
we closing up right now.
Yeah, we are closing up right now. It was quite an eventful and educational session that you just educated us about, like what Pakistani government has, like for in law for women. Like we are empowered, and you just explained it to like specifically that who women can reach out to and where they should reach out to, who can they ask help for, right person at the right time. So I guess it was pretty much like an amazing educational session for me. And
It was
I don't think
totally
Dr.
was for
We
me.
learned a lot from him. We should do this often with him.
We
Um,
should definitely do this a lot more often because I feel like there's just so much to the legal system that needs to be accessible to women and their awareness regarding it. And I'm very
yeah.
grateful to Barrister Sahab for this, building on what he said and what we've spoken about today, and carrying on the message that he was constantly saying to us. And again, I would like to advise our audience that if you somebody with a power of speech, if you're a woman who speaks up, do speak up. It does give power to the rest of us as well, and it allows us to carry forward the work done by very amazing women around here who are making it pretty much possible for us to be more participative in the society to achieve equality. Equality, I believe, starts off from number one, having
From
the
within
right to
you, from
speak
within you,
about,
I
yeah,
believe that.
from you
Yeah.
exactly, the right to speech that you have. If somebody else does, you do as well, and you need to trust it. Uh, that is about it. Anything lastly that you would like to say, Barsha Sahab?
Yes. Thank
I
you so
would
much.
I would just want to thank you for having me here. It was a complete pleasure. The questions were very impressive. I really got engaged by the questions as well. And may Allah always keep you heavy and give you a lot of success. Lots of prayers for the non-way, doing a great job. Once again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very much,
joining
Barsha
us.
Sahab, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions, we're
And
going to address them in the comment section, and please
later,
do join us again. Yes, Misha.
and thank you so much. This is like we are just signing off. I wish happy Sunday to everyone. With that, Allah Hafiz and bye bye.